Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Duke Blackwood, and I'm the director of the Ronald Reagan Library and Museum, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here today. Before we start, I ask that you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Okay, 20 years ago today, something very important happened. Something came down. Perhaps you can help me with this. What wall came down? I can't hear you. What wall came down? Well, that's right. That ugly concrete wall that divided families, friends, and freedom for more than 4 decades finally fell. On that historic day, families were reunited. Tears of happiness were shed, and freedom shined for all the people in Germany as well as all over the world. Think about this for a minute. Wouldn't you be happy if you got to see your family again after 28 years? Wouldn't you be happy if you had your freedom back after so long? Wouldn't you be happy to know that once again you could be proud of your own country? Of course you would. And that is why we are celebrating the anniversary of the fall of the wall today. Now, why was that wall so bad? I think you just might want to listen to some of these numbers. And don't worry, I'm not going to give you a test afterwards. But I think you might just be shocked about some of the facts of this ugly wall. There were literally thousands of families who were separated. That meant, for some, they would never, ever see their families again. The wall stood about 13 feet tall. It was 97 miles long. That would stretch from here at the library all the way to Orange County. There were over 300 towers filled with armed soldiers with real bullets, and they would shoot anyone trying to escape. Over 5,000 actually made the escape to freedom, but 3,000 didn't, and they were arrested, and who knows what happened to them. 120 were actually injured trying to escape. And worst of all, over 160 people died trying to escape to freedom. Boys and girls, that's why that wall was bad. The wall was so bad that President Reagan knew he had to do something about it. And you know what? He did. He knew that one country, in particular one man, could help take that down if he could somehow be convinced it was the right thing to do. His name was Mikhail Gorbachev, and he was the leader of the Soviet Union. So President Reagan challenged Mr. Gorbachev in one of the most important speeches he made as President of the United States. And that speech was at the Brandenburg Gate. I think you may have studied that famous line that President Reagan said to Mr. Gorbachev. Now, teachers, let's see how well the students have been studying. I want you to finish that line for me. Are you ready? Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay, here goes. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Well, teachers, it looks like you have some very bright students here today. And thank you for your good work in the classroom. And a special thank you to President Reagan for helping make that terrible wall come down. You know what? President Reagan said something else important on that day. In an interview, he said, "Today represents a moment of hope." Boys and girls, President Reagan never wanted anyone to give up hope. He saw the best in people, and if he were here today, he would clearly see the best in you. Okay, enough of me talking. We have a special treat for you today. When we invited Wood Ranch Elementary, we had no idea that someone for your school was very closely tied to our event. It turns out that one of your teachers, Miss Treese, was a first lieutenant whose job in 1978 was to tour military and government officials through Checkpoint Charlie. And when then Governor Ronald Reagan went on his first ever trip to Germany in 1978, it was Lieutenant Treese who toured him through Checkpoint Charlie. How cool is that? What an honor to have her with us today. Now I ask that she come up and say a few words. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Oh my goodness. Good morning, future leaders.
Good morning, Mrs. Reese.
Very good. When I was asked to come and speak today, I was honored. As a young lieutenant, never been assigned outside of the United States of America, my first assignment was Berlin, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but as always, there are people in your lives who will come to you with negativity and jealousy, and they were like, oh, you're going to a place where there's more spies per square foot than anywhere else in the world. But that didn't scare me. Oh, you're going to a place where there's a wall, and you're going to have to work with your allies. And, you know, the bottom line was I was looking forward to the challenge. I was honored to serve this country, and I got on that plane, and I went to Berlin, where I knew no one, had never been there before. I'd been to Europe, but never Berlin. And I got off that plane in my uniform, and the first thing I saw were soldiers with submachine guns. And I knew I was no longer in Oz, as Dorothy would say. Life changed for me that day, and I realized that everything that I had somehow managed to take for granted, I never took for granted anymore. Freedom. And I saw firsthand what it means not to have it. Every day I saw that wall. Every day I saw soldiers marching on it. And when I went to Checkpoint Charlie and I saw the lengths to which people will go for freedom, I realized that everything that I had done, as far as my training and the pain and the discomfort, was all worth it for freedom. I am proud to be an American. I am proud to be a teacher for future leaders. And God bless America. In Berlin, I did two things. The first thing I did was called a train commander. No, I didn't drive it. But because of the wall and the situation, the only way to get Allied troops and families out of West Berlin was to go through the corridor of East Germany. And so we needed an American officer on that train. And the American officer, which was me, dealt with the Russian and the East Germans, translators with all the paperwork, etc. So every night I worked with a Russian lieutenant, and I also saw all the dogs guarding the trains, the French trains, all the Allied trains going through. I heard gunshots at one night. My sergeant came, Lieutenant, we've got a guy trying to get on the train. And I had heard banging, and the train was built in such a way that you couldn't open the door from the outside. And there was a young man, and I saw his eyes. He stared right at me. He wanted on the train. Why? Freedom. He didn't have it. He was so young. And, of course, he didn't make it. He was shot off. I'll never forget that. And as a train commander, that ran every night. My second job was as a protocol officer, and this is where I met Governor Reagan and his wife and many other people. And once again, I became immersed every day in what it is like not to have freedom. Looking over that wall, nothing but gray, dark, sadness, knowing that families were separated. And at that time, no knowledge that the wall would ever come down, but always hoping that it would. And then there's one other incident that happened to me, and I shared it with my students. I'm going to share it with you now. I was standing at the wall one day in my uniform, just staring at it, and an elderly woman came up to me and spit on me. I was like, okay. And I didn't, it didn't make me angry, but I just thought, wow, people hate us. Even on this side of the wall. It makes sense to me. But you know, it doesn't matter that it didn't make sense to me. What mattered was how I reacted. And I really felt sorry for that woman. And I'll never forget that incident. I'd like to end today. This morning when I came in, one of my students came up to me, and this particular student does enjoy writing poetry. And she said, "Mrs. Treese, I wrote this for you." I said, "Okay," and I read it. "Oh, please may I end today with your poem?" "Okay." So that's how I'd like to end. There was a wall in Berlin that clearly states that the East was not close to their Western mates. Many were killed trying to escape. So many people had lost their faith. But tear down this wall, Ronald Reagan had stated, and bad thoughts of the wall suddenly faded. Ronald Reagan, making many people merry, is why this is such a wonderful library. And I won't walk away without asking Tara Barudar to please stand up. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you, Tara. Students are pretty lucky to have a teacher like that. Speaking of students, I'd like to thank each of you here today for submitting your essay on how to make the world a better place. It was a contest that we had. We had to pick just one to read, and they were all very good, but we had to pick one. Now I'd like to invite Grace Ores up to the podium to read what her speech said. Grace?
Before I read my student assignment, I'd just like to say thank you so much to everyone at the Ronald Reagan Library for picking me and giving me this opportunity. It was really cool when you guys came into my class and showed me how significant this event was, and I'm sure all of the fifth graders here would agree with me that it is a humongous honor to be able to participate, so thank you. So, what unfair things in the world today would you want to change to make the world a better place? I would like to find a cure for cancer or AIDS. A lot of people are getting sick and dying, and not just America, but foreign countries. If there was a cure, people would be healthy and be able to continue with daily life, like reuniting with family and friends or going back to work. It would be a much better world if these sicknesses were cured. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. What a great job. And now it's just about time for your big job and to begin what we're really here for today, to commemorate that day 20 years ago when the wall came down. Kids, I ask you in the front row if you could come join me up here, please. Notice what they're carrying. These are their own bricks of the wall that they're going to help tear it down with. Before we start, I think we should listen to the man himself, Ronald Reagan, in his own words on that fateful day in Germany at the Brandenburg Gate.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Okay, kids, tear down this wall. Okay, kids, that was great. Give them a round of applause. Now, in honor of President Reagan, Lauren, excuse me.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. To be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you, Laura, Tim, for singing that beautiful rendition of God Bless the USA, one of Ronald Reagan's favorites. And I'd also like to thank Wood Ranch Elementary and everybody who's out here today. And remember, freedom. Thank you.